What was not a close game, Dalton, was BYU destroying Arizona 41-19. Let's go over to the highest graded Cougars in this massive win for BYU. Highest graded player for them was Isaiah Glasgow, the linebacker, 82.9. Jacob Robinson, 77.2. Chase Roberts at a 74.7. LJ Martin making his return, 73.5 grade for the sophomore running back. Braden Keim, 70.3. And Jake Retzlaff, our guy, at a 71.1 in this one. Let's go over to the Arizona side of the ball with their highest grade players in this game. Jonas Avainea, 73.8. Kedrick Riscano at a 69.6. Genesis Smith at a 68.5. Taitai Uyangalele at a 68.4. And Takario Davis, 67.6. And then Noah Fafita at a 46.1 grade in this one. I'll talk about that in just a second. But Dalton, what was the stat that told the story for you in this game?
So BYU has really, obviously they've gotten a lot of improvement out of Jake Retzlaff, but they are such a balanced team. Like, everything about their team is just solid. I can't even sit here and say there's one superstar guy, there's a first-round pick type of guy, there's somebody setting records. They just, in all three phases, were just better than Arizona. But I think the big element that got added, and something that suddenly makes BYU possibly maybe the Big 12 favorite. Do we think that, I mean, I know Iowa State's obviously ranked up there with them. We've got Texas Tech is 3-0 in conference, and we got a boatload of teams at 2-1 getting big wins. BYU, 5.4 yards per carry. And we had talked about, obviously they had injuries at running back. We had talked about they got to add some balance to this offense because through week 6, Jake Retzlaff was their leading rusher. But 5.4 yards per carry is a season high. You got LJ Martin and Hinckley Rapati back for the first time since the SMU game. They both got hurt in the SMU game, and this is their first. That was week 2. This is their first action since then. Martin with 11 carries, 49 yards and a touchdown. Rapati with 9 carries for 65 yards. Retzlaff obviously still adds to the run game. It felt like their run game was just more efficient, just smoother through this game. They get a lead. They got a really good defense. This BYU defense is legit, big time. I won't tell you he's one superstar player. Feels like in that top 5 we see different guys every single. There's like different guys every single week. It's like it could be a linebacker, it could be their linebackers, it could be safeties, it could be a defensive line, it could be anybody. But this is a balanced football team, and if they get more balanced on offense and they're starting to add this running game the way that they played against Arizona, They really might be the Big 12 favorite, honestly. They just – I can't point out a whole lot of fatal flaws with them. I think the two things for me going into this game was find a running game and find a little more in the pass rush. Okay, the second one, now we're still working on that, but that might be the only thing now. If they're going to find a run game now with their running backs getting healthy, they may just be – I don't know if they're the best team in the Big 12. We'll find out the hard way as we always do. They might be the least flawed team in the Big 12. They just don't – I don't see like a big Achilles heel right now for BYU. They're just such a balanced football team.
Yeah, they've been so balanced this year. They've been probably the biggest surprise in college football, I would say, so far this year. We'll get into our top 25 and where they are just after this. But my side of the story is the other side of the ball. Noah Fafita, 43 passing grade in this game. Arizona's a team average 5.3 yards per pass. 43 passing grade for Fafita, career low. He had a career high 5 turnover-worthy plays. His previous worst passing grade was a 46.4, which was last week, Dawn. Last week. His previous worst turnover-worthy plays was 3. That was last year. Over the last 2 weeks, Noah Fafita, who we thought was a top 10 quarterback in the country entering the year, and still is a really good quarterback, don't get us wrong, but over the last 2 weeks, he is the second lowest graded quarterback in the country. And the only one lower is Dylan Raiola, who was off this week. So among quarterbacks who've played in both of the last 2 weeks, Noah Fafita is the lowest graded quarterback in college football. He is the biggest reason for Arizona's losses these last 2 weeks, and when really he should have been the reason why they win these games. And he is, over the last 2 weeks, it's been alarming how ineffective Noah Fafita has been.
He's forcing it. Yeah. He's forcing it now. We've hit the point where there's just no turning back for Arizona, and Tetsuo McMillan's their only legitimate, consistent threat. And you can see Fafita trying to extend plays, trying to force the ball downfield, trying to just, again, will this team towards the end zone. It's just not going to happen.
He was so comfortable. His best trait last year, he was so comfortable in the offense. He looks so uncomfortable.
And everything was quicker, right?
Yeah.
Like with Jed Fish, it was just quicker, and guys were getting open, and they had more guys. They had more weapons last year.
Definitely.
We've hit the point now where I feel for Fafita because he's forcing it. He is trying so hard to put this team on his back.
He's still a good player. It's not like it's not.
He's trying so hard to put this team on his back. And you just can't against really good defenses like BYU and even against Texas Tech, the turnovers. That's actually the most concerning thing for me with Fafita's that now you get the turnovers because last year he hardly had turnover-worthy plays. It was not a thing.
He was 5 yesterday.
He was very safe with the football last year, and you're seeing it break down now the last couple of games. It's rough for Arizona. They're 1-2 in conference now. They've lost 2 in a row. You get to a point here where you just don't see much of a fix.
No,
they're not going to get new weapons in the portal this week. It's not a thing. So I mean, and I'm just going to skip to the most impressive here. The other side of that, the BYU secondary, they were just terrific. I mean, look, you want to beat Arizona, you got to find a way to cover them. You got to find a way to bother Fafita. You mentioned 5 turnover-worthy plays. They got 3 interceptions, 72.4 team coverage grade. That's their best against an FBS opponent this season. So now the secondary is getting better too. And you hold Tetsuo and McMillan to 5 catches for 78 yards. Only allowed 2 20-plus yard receptions. They're just getting it done. Every part of BYU's football team is getting it done right now. And to do it against Fafita and McMillan for the second week in a row, you got to think, okay, Arizona's coming out desperate. They lost to Texas Tech last week. The season's kind of on the line here. And BYU's defense just dominant. The secondary was dominant. Everything about this game was dominant. It was such a balanced effort. BYU's a scary football team right now because they just don't. You have to beat them. Like you don't. It's not like, oh, here's their weakness. Stick your thumb in it. You have to just go in there and be more physical. You have to be balanced. You got to have everything right now to beat this team. They are going to be a really tough out in this Big 12. In a wide-open Big 12, again, they may have the most balanced team in the whole thing.
And I feel like people are not taking them seriously still, which I think is just so wrong.
No, this is just – they're the team that you go, I don't know who these guys are, but they're really good.
They better be top 10 in the AP poll. I'll say that right now. They better be top 10 in the AP poll. And they will be top 10 in our ranking. They'll break down just a little bit. I thought 14 was disrespectful last week. They better be a heck of a lot higher in this one. We'll see what they are in a few hours, honestly. We'll get into our rankings later. But, yeah, my most impressive part, Dawn, it's a really PFF show for me in this one because this is the third time I'm talking about an offensive line. It's my most impressive part. The BYU offensive line was awesome in this game. They averaged, before contact per carry, 1.8 yards. That's a lot before contact per carry. 0 sacks, 0 hits, 4 pressures allowed on 33 pass blocking snaps. Caleb Etienne and Austin Liusa with no pressures allowed in this game. BYU has kicked ass up front with their offensive line, which has led to a lot of success offensively. And they were 13th in the country before this week in pass protection grade, and they'll probably go up even higher after this performance, honestly. And last year, listen, they had a rough year last year, but the one thing they did really well last year was protect the quarterback. They've done a really good job with that offensive line for a very long time. I mean, listen, we thought Zach Wilson was a franchise quarterback, Dawn, probably because of that offensive line, because he had 5 seconds per throw back there, honestly.
Sure did. He had a ton of space to work with.
I mean, whenever they have issues, BYU's had issues in the past, but man, they have always had consistently a great offensive line, it feels like. And again, they have one this year, and they dominated yesterday against Arizona.
And they did it in this game without their star starting center, Connor Pay.
Right,
he was out for the Connor Pay. He's one of the best centers in the country, and they did this without him. No, they've got a long history of really good pass protection, like you mentioned, and they were outstanding in this game too.
Yep, definitely. So BYU, massive win over Arizona, beating them by 22 points in this game.